best series
Yeah,
of the playoffs, baby.
I get to engage in Leafs talk.
Yes.
Yes, let's go.
I know whenever
Because
Nick's like, okay, let's talk about the
yeah,
Leafs normally. You're like, oh,
yeah.
phone.
For those that watch the video podcast, whenever it gets into Leafs talk, I'm just a pretty face. But this week, with no Nick, I get to engage. And here's the thing: I've watched the Leafs game, so I know what I'm talking about instead of talking out my ass. Let's go.
That's what I was gonna ask you. Have you watched the games?
I have, yes.
Awesome. Okay, so the Leafs, we'll start here, absolutely shit the bed in game one. That was one of the worst performances I've ever seen them in the Matthews and Marner era. That was horrible. Matt, what was your take on the game? The whole theatrics, everything that was on Twitter after. It was a whole thing.
After the Oilers lost in game one, I kind of stayed off Twitter, just for mental reasons. But in
I
game
feel you.
one, as soon as it wasn't the 1-0 goal, it was the Sorelli goal,
Yep.
like, 7.5 minutes into the first period. I was like, oh no, not this again. And it wasn't even the Kucherov goal with like 4 seconds left. It was the second goal,
Hmm.
and then I was like, no, this can't possibly happen again. And then I saw Hedman get injured, so they're down to five defensemen.
Yep.
The Chirinak, we'll get into that Chirinak, so they're down to four defensemen. It's like there is no way the Leafs can lose this series. Like they're missing their probably, I don't know, I wouldn't say their top two defensemen, but their best defensemen. It's like they've got all the momentum on their side. Game one, okay, feel out game. Remind everybody who they are. Game two, remind everybody who they were during the regular season, as
Hmm.
opposed to last year's playoffs. It was just a complete momentum swing.
Yep.
The Leafs, they realize what they have in their hands right now does not come around every year, and they're capitalizing on it, or trying to at least.
Trying to.
And that's the best hockey I've seen Morgan Riley play ever.
Yeah,
Ever. Let's go
literally
with that.
last night was the best Morgan Riley game of all
Like
time.
like my man turned into Morgan Orr there for a minute.
Four assists, most in Leafs playoff history in a game. Four assists, which is insane. That they're breaking these records. The Leafs as a franchise are horrible. But yeah, to go back to game one, just to give my thoughts. They started the game horrible. Like you could see it in the first 30 seconds. They were not ready for prime time. And that could be the game. Because if the Lightning went up 2-3 goals, which they did, this game is done. So they were very undisciplined. They weren't playing to their strengths at all. They looked nervous. The crowd was nervous, you could tell, even though it was game one. But there's that nervous energy where it's like, holy shit, if we don't do it this year, what is going to happen, right? Like, forget last year. There was this energy of like, we can do this and whatever. But like this year, it's like, you have to do it or else everyone leaves and all this shit. So anyway, we moved to the second period. They started playing better. And I honestly thought like, if the refs didn't interfere and things got a little sketchy, they were gonna win that game too. Like they were coming on hard.
It was soon as Nylander made it 3-2.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, they're starting to realize we're the Leafs.
Yes.
And then that's when it went off the rails completely.
Exactly. As soon as Nylander scored, I was like, just the way play was going. It wasn't even the penalties, right? Because that goal was on the power play, but the Leafs took a couple penalties already. But just the way they were playing leading up to that goal, I was like, all right, they're going to bang in one more and they're going to win this game, right? They're just going to take over the game just the way they were playing. Then you get like a phantom a cross check, which Shen didn't even have two hands on his stick, so I'm not sure how that's a cross check. If you want to call it interference or roughing, whatever, it's not a cross check. Then I think they called Ross Colton on one back checking on Riley. He didn't even do anything. I don't know how that's a penalty. Then there was another one on, I'm forgetting now. Oh, that's Slash. Perry slashes somebody. Camp slashes him back, I think. They call that only Camp. I'm like, dude, what are we doing here? Then the game starts to get out of hand. Tampa starts scoring. Then the bunting thing. So we can get into the bunting thing now. I think Michael Bunting was preparing for Cernak to come down hard on him in the corner because that's where the puck was. And he was kind of bracing himself, but it was a stupid play. He puts his elbow up, gets him in the head. Cernak's out now, which should be pretty interesting for the rest of the series. And so is Bunting. But leading up to this game, Bunting has looked like a liability for the Leafs. So him getting suspended isn't even the worst thing for the Leafs. But again, stupid play, put them down even worse than they were in that game. But yeah, Matt, what did you think of the whole bunting ordeal and those series of penalties, like right after the Nylander goal to kind of the bunting thing?
Yeah, like the bunting thing, like that was just like emotions taking over completely. That wasn't where he was trying to go, oh, I'm gonna hit the guy. No, that was him putting all he had, all his rage, all his pent up emotions into Eric Chernak, and yeah, there's consequences for your
Yes.
actions, and Michael Bunting learned that. And yeah, like the refing, there's been certain like notable moments over the course of the playoffs, like these last few years,
Uh-huh.
like in the Leafs Bruins series, where if the refs don't police the players will do it themselves,
Right.
and then the refs realize that, and then that's when they start to take names and call reputation calls on them. Like
But as
Bunting, okay, that wasn't a reputation call, that was
no,
quite obvious,
yeah, yeah.
but they start to take names and take notes.
But I think once the game gets to that point, you're in trouble because the game will get out of
Absolutely.
hand immediately. You cannot let it get to that point, right? And then I think, like, obviously, the Lightning are scoring some cheap goals. The Leafs don't look like themselves after that again. And the game was pretty much a lost cause. And the only thing I want to say, too, about game one to end it is as a league, when you wake up the next morning after a Leafs playoff game and your number one trending thing is Wes McCauley, who is a referee, you have a very bad, you have an issue. You have a problem you need to solve. And given the history with him and Sheldon Keefe, I don't know how the league allows, with that information in public domain, I don't know how the league allows him to ref games.
It's almost like a conflict of interest.
It is 100%
That's
conflict of
exactly
interest.
what it is.
Yeah. But it continues to happen. They just sweep it under the rug. But it's interesting because you can just Google it now and it's there for you to read. So I thought that was interesting too. And
Yeah.
also the other interesting thing, they're 0-8 in every game that he's refed. What do you want me to say? What do you want me to say?
The numbers don't lie, and they spell disaster for Samoa Joe at Sacrifice.
That's next Sunday on pay-per-view. So yeah, we'll move on to game two. The Leafs were like, hey, yeah, we back. We back. We are us, you know. Completely took over the game. I didn't watch the game in full. I missed the game, but I caught some of the highlights in most of the first and second period. It was a good game. They took over. They completely outplayed the Lightning. I thought you can also make a case that the Lightning weren't on their game either. But yeah, big guy stepping up. Tavares with a playoff hat trick hasn't happened in 21 years or something like that for the Leafs, which isn't saying much because the last time they won a series was 19 years ago. But yeah, I mean, great performances. Nylander with 2 goals, I think. Marner had 2 goals.
Yeah,
Huge
like
performance.
the core four. I'll just dig up Nick's tweet here
Yeah, yeah.
again. He's not on the episode, but with us spiritually.
Contributing.
I'll use his source material. Tavares with a hat trick, like you said. Matthews 2 assists. Marner 2 goals, 1 assist, and Nylander with 1 goal and 1 assist. For Matthews to have 2 assists in a game where you score 7 goals. I mean,
That's great.
it's the McDavid thing against the Kings all over again. Like if you keep this guy quiet and you allow the others to sort of step up, it'll spell trouble for you.
It'll hurt you. And Matthews is coming. He doesn't stay quiet for long. We saw it last year. His
It,
time will
it's it's
come.
it's not a matter of if, it's when.
When, yeah, which is the most dangerous part. But yeah, I don't know. Great freaking effort, man, from them. And I know the Lightning probably weren't on their game, but heading back to Tampa now, I don't know. The first game, I was kind of like, holy shit, they're in their own heads. How is game two going to go? Because if you lose game two, you're looking, this is tough, right? But the way they played that game last night, just the way they know how, I still have the Leafs winning this series in 6 games. If the Leafs play like that and they're locked in like that, I don't see them losing many games this series. So,
Yeah, I think they're going to capitalize on smelling blood in the water,
uh
that they failed to do against teams like Montreal, where like Montreal was significantly weaker than this year's Tampa Bay team.
absolutely.
But they will, like it's the highlight reel in their head. They're replaying, like they can't sleep, and they're replaying moments where they realize, hey, we could have capitalized here, and they didn't. And this is the year, where they slay the dragon.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a wonderful day for an exorcism. Like Jim Houston once said.
I think you're right. I think this is the year. They're a different team. And honestly, watching, listening to what people were saying and then watching some of it back from last night, a lot of the guys, Tavares had a hat trick, Martin with the 2 goals, Matthews 2 assists, all these guys, the top 4, whatever. Riley 4 assists. Ryan O'Reilly was the best player on the ice.
For more content, visit our YouTube channel and check us out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Don't forget to follow the guys on social media at Matt_Mondays, at Nick LaFlame, and at Darius Dominguez.